Do you think that in Britain we still have an issue with interracial relationships? And if you are going to date someone outside of your race, does that mean that you're compromising your black card or your blackness?
Anissa's creasing straight away, so I'm interested to know what you have to say. But I think that, like, asking whether there's still an issue with interracial relationships in Britain is kind of like asking if we still have a issue with racism in Britain. And I think that, you know what I mean? Like, you can't have one without the other. So I think that for every person on the planet, no matter where you are in the world, race plays a factor into your life. So it's impossible for it not to play a factor into your relationship. But it is possible for you to have a healthy interracial relationship. The issue that I find is that the interracial relationships that are most celebrated within pop culture are the ones that aren't healthy. They're the ones that involve fetishization and designer babies and trends and things like that. And it's more to do with like the look of it, and you know what I mean? It's more to do with the fashion of it all.
Yeah.
But I think those kind of people in those situations are problematic, whether they're single or whether they're in a relationship. So for me, it doesn't really matter, because you're going to be like bad both ways, I think. But in terms of interracial relationships that are healthy, you can I don't think you always have to compromise your blackness if you're someone who is black and is dating someone who isn't, because I think everyone deserves to just find love where it's reciprocated and to experience that. But I think, I think too many things. Anissa, tell me what you think. Because I could keep talking about it for a while.
I was following.
We love to hear it, girl. We love to hear it.
I was following. I was listening. Okay, because there's two parts to this question, so this feels like this. Okay, do I think that Britain still has a problem with interracial relationships? I want to say yes, and I'll say yes with an asterisk, because I'll say I don't think Britain has a problem with interracial relationships if the woman in the relationship is like the default, if she's white. That's what I personally think. I think they have an issue, or there's more of an issue when the woman is black. And the reason why I just say that is when I think about like celebrity couples in the UK and things like that, if I even merely take simple stuff like Love Island, the couples where one counterpart is black that is so celebrated is usually the black man. So, for example, we've got Luke T and Shawnice, like everybody goes crazy, and then they do the dances on the TikTok, and we will lose our mind, la la la. And it's do you know what I mean? It's so exciting. But then we have, and this might be completely different, but then when I was looking at, well, what interracial couples do we have in Britain that are of high status and the woman is of colour? So I was really thinking about it. I thought about Thandie Newton and her husband, but then, Thandie's like a global actress, so Britain doesn't really keep up with her. And then my mind drew back to Meghan and Harry. They slated Meghan all up and down through the press. I remember when I first found out they got engaged, the title I read was Mixed Race, was the first two words I said. It was Mixed Race, American actress engaged to Harry. As soon as I saw that, I said, what kind of agenda is going on here? And so I think the interracial relationship, I don't know why, but for me, it's celebrated a bit more if the man is black, if the man is black, and then, or if the man is of color and then the woman is white, versus the woman being of color. And I think that's because, once again, we're not sexy, we're not the desired, we're not the default desired. So that's why for me it's like that. I know Luanda jumping in, but I'm just gonna finish my point.
Jump in, girl. I'm coming after you, Luanda, because she's got a lot to say.
Sorry. that once again needs to just she, her opinions. And then with the blackness thing, I've been speaking to my friend about it as well, about compromising the blackness. And I don't know where I sit on the fence of that one, because initially, whoever you date shouldn't compromise your identity. So I don't feel like it's a thing like that. However, I don't know. Like, if I'm being honest, I don't know. Like, we were having a conversation about something, and he was saying, "Oh, X, Y, Z." This guy who was like super pro-black, but then my friend mentioned, "Oh yeah, but his girlfriend's white," and that wasn't really a thing. But then I was like, "Oh, in these times, it's a little tough." And the reason I said it's a little tough because where we are right now with the racial like justice and equality that's going on, the movement that's happening, everyone's so pro-black that they want everything to be black. Now we're shopping black. We're just thinking black, 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 black. So I think for people, when they then see, if you're so pro-black and they see you with a partner who's not black, they may get confused at your message. They shouldn't, but the aesthetics of it may throw them off. So that's why I'm like, for me, it doesn't matter. Like, but I've never been in the situation where I dated someone out of my race and had to question my blackness. So that's why I'm just kind of on the fence. So yes, that's me. So
it was, you know what it was? No, it's fine, it's fine. And now that you finished, I have like 3, 4, 5 more things to say, but I'm just going to stick to the thing that I initially wanted to say, because you mentioned black women having a harder time than black men when they date outside their race, right? And I think that's very true. And I think the reasoning for that is because white women are, of course, if we're going by beauty standards, like white women are supposed to be the most desirable. And at the moment, black men are trending. Like I said about the fetishization, like it makes people feel interesting and like trendy when they have, and that's why like I said, pop culture celebrates the most problematic versions of interracial relationships, because they can absolutely be healthy, but the ones that we're like, wow, these are great, they don't seem healthy to me, you know? And I think sometimes when you have a highly melanated person dating someone who isn't, we have been rejected by white culture our whole lives. And so sometimes for highly melanated people to be loved by a white person, it makes them feel like they're one step closer to white acceptance, which, by the way, isn't real. But when it comes to, it's not, just in case people didn't know. And I had a friend who was a black guy and told me about this white girl at uni. He said to him, why don't I ever see you with a white girl? And I said to him, you know that if you purely dated white girls, that person would have never had approached you and been like, why don't I see you with a black girl? Ever. And that's because white women are seen as like the creme de la creme of females, which is why even black men expect black women to stay single if they can't get a black man, because they also see themselves as the creme de la creme, you know? So it's like, when I talked last week about the looks that I'd get from just being with white male platonic friends that I wasn't dating, they're just my friends, but people would think that we're dating. And I would never see a black man give that same look or make black men who are dating white women feel as unsafe as they made me feel.
Wow.
Oof, girl, you said too much, man. No. There's so much I want to talk about. I think, let me start with the Harry and Meghan thing. I think what was really interesting is it seemed to bring this idea of interracial relationships, not idea, but interracial relationships more into the public forefront for white people. Like some people seem to be very surprised that people are so aggressive about this, people are racist, and black people are like, we don't know this wasn't going to end well for her. We knew, like, up until the wedding, everyone was celebrating her. The moment she did anything wrong, she wore the wrong colour. You caught a picture of her looking at Kate, suddenly she hates her, suddenly it's this, suddenly she's causing the rift between the brothers. And it's just like, people still have a difficulty with seeing it because they still have a difficulty with black people. As you said, Luanda, I think it's very, very simple in that sense. When it comes to talking about trading in my black card or my blackness, I think for me, I'm so entrenched in my blackness that wouldn't happen if I had dated somebody who was white or was married to someone who was white. But I think in talking and looking around this subject, I had to realize that there is some internalized racism that I have to really combat within myself, because an article that I was reading, I can't remember which one it was, but it talked about this idea of if you dated somebody who was outside of your race, if you would feel guilty or that you were letting down black people or people in your family or whatever, then there's internalized racism there. And I was just like, I think I would have a big mental hurdle to get over if I dated somebody that wasn't black, because I think within my community, there is still people that feel very uncomfortable about it. Or they'll be like, you're a black woman, you're going places, shouldn't you be with a black man? And it's just like, well, this is the person who I met who loves me and I love them and they accept me and I accept them. So like, and I had to really think about where do those misconceptions come from. And I think sometimes, I'm not going to talk about who in my family specifically has those misconceptions, but
you better not.
There was a lot of racism growing up, and so they felt safe around being with other black people, dating other black people, because they got so much racism, so much stick from white people. Just the thought of being with someone of that race for them would probably be unheard of or unthinkable. But a lot of it's been shaped by the experience that they had. But I think as we're living in a different world to some extent, we can see that actually it's possible for you to date someone outside of your race and for them to actually stand with you as an ally in your blackness, and you don't need to dilute it.
Yeah, Sophie, just as you were talking, you just completely reminded me that I did once date outside my race. I don't know how I completely forgot that. I literally forgot that, and it was like a good 6 months of my life. I have no idea how that has... I don't understand how I forgot it. But
6 months?
Yeah!
6 months? Are you kidding me?
That's why I said earlier, them days of my race, I had to think about it. I thought to myself, what? Like, actually, I went, oh my gosh. I was confused. But yes, now that my memory is put together and I now remember that I have, dated inside of my race. When I was dating outside my race, did I feel like my blackness was compromised in any way? I don't feel like it was compromised in any way, but what I do feel like was I don't know how much the people around me took it seriously, and I want to explain that. It was just kind of like, what I want to say is like...
So they thought it was just like a trend or something you was going to get over?
A little bit like that. Not even like a trend or whatever. It was just like... You know when when you have a boyfriend, right? But there's a guy that likes you, and he's like, "Oh, how's your little boyfriend?" It was kind of like that, but people don't like me. It's like, "Oh, how's your little boyfriend from blah blah blah?" And you'd be like, "Okay, he's okay." But it was almost
were
like
they white, Anissa?
Who the person I dated? No, they were Asian. They were from Pakistan, so it's completely left field. And so they're like, "Oh, how's your little?" And it'd be like, you would not be asking that if he was from so and so. Like, so for me, it was like they made a point to bring up his race. And so I felt like there was a little bit of undermining of the relationship. But I didn't feel like within the relationship, I had to compromise my blackness at all. And I don't know if that was just because of the individual I was with. So I don't know if it depends on the individual you're with, whether you have to compromise your blackness. Because I don't know how to explain it. Like, you know, when you get in a relationship, one person is more dominant than the other in regards to their family or the stronger presence or whatever. So one person's culture or lifestyle takes over the other person a little bit more. And so sometimes what you'll find is in the interrelationship...
Sophie's laughing because she's that person.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? No. Because she's that person. So
you are trying to get me divorced out here.
No, Sophie, we're not trying.
It was just the smile when she was like...
But like, my end thought to it is like, okay, when Kanye and Kim first got together, like everyone was like, oh, Kanye doesn't do X anymore, Y anymore, like we don't know if he's for black people, blah, 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 because we felt like, the general public felt like he had assimilated so much into that culture and had almost walked away from his black culture. And I remember he went on a Breakfast Club episode and he said, I don't know why you guys say that I'm not for black people. Like my wife, she's got a big booty and she does this, like how much for black can get. It was a bit of a stupid comment, but the reality was his point he was trying to make was, I'm still black, even though I'm with this woman who's not black. And I think, but the perception was that he'd assimilated more into her culture, and so then the perception was then, well, how pro-black is he, because it feels like he's more in her culture than his. So that's where I was going with my point. Yeah, sorry, long train.
I think there's definitely stigma there, and I think it's also important to say that we know, I would assume, as black women, that it's not that there is still a lot of stigma within the black community about it. It's not that we're there with open arms all the time and people are like, come date us. People still do have reservations, and I think that one of the things that I think will help is in terms of, does it depend on the person you're dating? I think 100%. I don't know if you guys saw Love is Blind on Netflix.
Oh, yes.
And, oh my God. What was her name? The one...
Lauren and Cameron.
Lauren and Cameron. And yes. Exactly. When I saw Lauren, I'm just like, so if you haven't seen Love is Blind, it's a dating show on Netflix where people had to date each other and never see each other until their wedding day. And literally then they'd see...
until their engagement.
Until they'd have to get married. Until their engagement, that's right. And then they'd have to get married or decide not to. And Lauren, when I saw her, I really resonated with her. She's someone who you can definitely see yourself in, as someone who rides within your culture and really owns your blackness. So when she got with this white guy, who I'm just like, he's real cute. He's a fireman who's now making bucks in AI intelligence. I'm not wronging her. But what you saw was a man who was down to be an ally when he was having those conversations about, I know if we have children, they're going to be seen as black and they're going to be treated differently. I know this and I know that. Everyone was just like,
I love Cameron.
What? That's the sort of person you need to be with if you're interracially dating. Someone who takes on the idea of, somebody who tries to understand how your life is going to be affected by the color of your skin. Now, they won't be able to know 100%, but they have to be willing to learn. Someone who you're dating from any ethnicity and they're different from yours and they're like, I don't see your color, it doesn't matter. Drop that person because it will matter.
I hate that.
Like,
I don't see that color nonsense.
Exactly. You want to be in the privacy of your own home, but when you go out in the world, if they're going to treat you differently, you need to a certain level be prepared for that as a couple and know that not everyone's going to accept this love that we have for each other.
100%.
Yeah, you can't even escape the racism in your own home if you have the internet or the television. Like it's a 24/7 job, you know. And I think sometimes things that I've found is that in terms of, because I talked earlier about trends, I think the reality of the situation is people who think that they're adopting a little bit of black culture when they have a black partner or something like that. When you are in a relationship with a black person or even in a close friendship with a black person, you get to understand how deeply ingrained into our society and into our culture structural racism is. And there's more to being a black person than just hip hop and trainers. And when you realize that it's not all just like twist outs and, you know what I mean, like a barbecue, it's actually a lot. It's a lot of emotional labor. And sometimes people get in there and they're like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. So there's a trend that I've been seeing with interracial relationships. And I think a lot of the time when I see people who have dated a black person or who've married a black person and then the relationship ends or then they divorce, what happens after that is then they'll go for a white person afterwards because you've seen and I see that a lot, to be honest, like a lot. If the first marriage was a black person, the second marriage is a white person, and it's because you didn't realize what it was like to be a black person until you were that close to one. And it's a lot to deal with. Like, we talk about it and we laugh about it and we have, you know, all of these topics on the show, but the reality is something that no one can ever prepare you for unless you are experiencing it yourself.
I agree.
I think that's a really good
I didn't know
point.
that.
And I think that really comes to my mind as well when it comes to, like, I haven't dated outside my race, but I did think about it a few years just before I met my husband, actually. I was thinking, you know, maybe I need to branch out a bit.
Are you sure,
I'm
Sophie?
do you
remember everything, Sophie? Because
I'm pretty sure.
Anissa forgot her brown boyfriend.
I'm pretty sure. But something I was really concerned about was having mixed race children. And I just wanted to make sure, like, I was really concerned that would I be able to help them really embrace both sides of their identities? Because I watched this program on BBC and it was like a question called Things You Always Ask, or Questions You Always Ask. So they've done questions people always ask tall people, questions people always ask black people, questions people always ask redheads. And one of the things that they asked was questions you always ask mixed race people. And all these mixed race people were talking about, they were like, are you more black than white? Oh, but you're more black, right? So what side do you identify with more? And they were like, they had to try and work out themselves, like, how do I be both? Because the world wants to put me in one. So if, like Meghan Markle, as we were talking about, she said growing up, she had this big talk about the tick box. And when she was at school, they had to do a tick box of what their families were. And the teacher said, just tick white because you look white. And she said she couldn't in her heart because she was like, her mum is black. And she was like, I can't tick that box. And when she went home and told her family, her dad was just like, if there isn't a box, you create a box. You draw a box and you tick it on what you are. And I've always been really concerned with, like, making sure that, you know, mixed race children are able to identify with both, because they get a really tough time because people want to put them in a box. Like, black people will be like, if you've got a drop of black in you, you're black because you're like, the world is going to treat you like that. But that also denigrates the fact that, no, they're not. They have another heritage within them. And that's something they should embrace. But the world doesn't want them to.
It's true. And it's equally as relevant, and it's frustrating that, like you said, people are just going to put you to one side or the other instead of just treating you as you are, which is multifaceted, you know. I think for me, like, my perspective on this topic has changed in literally a matter of days. I'm talking 48 hours, guys.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay, so what was it before? So, Luanda. Luanda, what was it before and what is it now? Because I want to know what's been the shift.
I'm sure you guys can guess. So.
No, we want to know.
Luanda, I'm perplexed.
Our listeners, our viewers don't know. They need to know.
I'm perplexed. I don't understand.
Okay, so before I got
did
to
you meet a guy of a certain colour? Is this what we're talking about? Did I call it?
No.
Tell us the details.
No.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I feel like scared admitting this on the internet. But okay, so before 2 days ago, my perspective was really that, you know, I just gave a whole speech about the Black experience and how you'll never really know what it is until you live it. And so for me, I think like I'm open to receiving love from everyone, and I always have been. But in my mind, I always viewed myself as ending up with a Black man, because I'm thinking if I'm gonna have my life partner as a Black man and I'm a woman, I'm already going to have to teach you what it's like to be a woman in this world. And so I don't want to have to also teach you what it's then like to be a person of color. Like, I need you to meet me halfway. So I had that perspective, and there was even times where there were non-Black people who wanted to like enter into relationships with me, and I had to just be completely honest that I thought it was going to be a waste of my time. However,
I was waiting for you to get to this part, girl.
Girl, you have no chill. You have no chill, and I believe you said it.
I really did. I really did.
You said it. I just know it.
Honestly, get to the part we're waiting for.
Okay, so for me, I said, stop it, Anissa. I said to him, I was like, I respect you enough to be completely honest about why I don't want to date you, because this is not something that I've just decided. This is something that has been like trial and error. And so in my mind, I'm thinking only if a crazy person tries the same thing over and over again and expects different results. So why am I going to just do the same thing when clearly some higher force is telling me this ain't it, sister? You know what I mean? So, but now I feel like there's so many layers to us. And whilst like being a woman and being a Black person is at the forefront of my experience, and it always will be because of the outside world, there's so much more to me than just that. And so I don't ever want to close myself off to the opportunity of just finding love, of like giving love and receiving love from whoever it is that wants to like get to know me, because there's more to getting to know me than just like, oh, hey, she's a Black woman. Like, there's so much more than that. So now I guess I feel like I'm more open to anyone.
That's all you have to say now.
So what made the shift though, Luanda? So what was it in the 48 hours that made you
a man?
Please tell us about it. Okay. Where did you meet him? Did you meet him online? Have you? Because you said you gave up on online dating. So did you meet online?
Stop talking.
Did you meet him on the street?
You guys better stop.
Were you taking out the same Renee Ede book from the library about race? Were you like, oh, that's my boo right there?
She wants to stop talking.
I'm so done. The thing is though, because I do like the way that I speak on the show is really the way that I speak with my friends and my family, my personal life. So if you do want to date me, you need to be the most actively anti-racist non-Black person there is going. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm saying there's just going to be anybody, because like I said, I've had so many painful experiences in the past that I am still, I'm open, but I'm still put off by it because it still hurts. And so I don't want to repeat those same mistakes. So you do need to be actively anti-racist to be stepping to me. There isn't a guy. There isn't. It was just that I've been hearing, because when we talk about interracial relationships, and most of the times when we talk about most of the issues that affect the Black community, we're always talking about them from a Black male standpoint, and we really don't always put ourselves in the picture. And so I've just been listening to and reading a lot of Black women talking about their interracial relationships, instead of looking at it as the other way around, because I think there's a big difference there. So yeah, I think like that's why I was like so ready to pounce, Anissa, when you were talking about how Black women get more stick for it than Black men do. Like with Black men it's more celebrated, and with Black women it's looked at as a betrayal. So I think it was just hearing a lot of Black women experiencing things that they didn't deserve to experience because of the people that they love, that has just made me feel like hearing you speak is making me think about my own train of thought. I feel like
I open to everyone? Oh, I feel like I'm just open to who I think is attractive. Whatever colour they may hit on the rainbow will be what it will be. But my preference is the black men. And so I feel like I'm more likely to, because that's what my preference is. But I'm not closed off if Channing Tatum wants to holler. I'm not closed off. That's what I think.
Channing Tatum, sis, out of all the ones.
Channing is
out of all the
my
ones
man.
you could have shouted out. Channing Tatum.
Channing is the one.
Channing.
Funny.
My husband Channing, I'm done with you. I struggled, but I'm not gonna lie, but I struggled with it because in my mind, I think that true love is understanding, and because I don't believe that anyone who isn't black can understand the black experience, I'm like, how can you truly love me if you can't understand me? But yeah, I'm learning, I'm growing. It's a process.
It's all a process. Iteration.
It is.
We are here to grow together. We're here to grow together.